Hello? Anybody here?
The fluorescent lights in the server room hummed like dying insects. I was elbow deep in cable management when Liam appeared in the doorway, clutching a flash drive like it might bite him. "Jason," he whispered, glancing over his shoulder, "I need to show you something." The kid looked like he hadn't slept in days, dark circles under his eyes, hands shaking. Liam was one of those students who faded into the background, quiet, nervous, the type professors ignored unless they needed someone to pick on. "What's up?" I asked, not looking away from the tangle of Ethernet cables. Midnight maintenance was my specialty. The campus was dead quiet, just how I liked it. "It's about Professor Walsh. Your wife." His voice cracked on the last word. That got my attention. I turned around, wiping my hands on my jeans. "What about her?" Liam extended the flash drive with a trembling hand. "I recorded this by accident. I was in the office next door, trying to print my essay. The wall is thin, and I heard—" He swallowed hard. "Just watch it. Please." I took the drive, studying his face. Liam wasn't the type to cause trouble. If anything, he was too scared of his own shadow to make waves. "What am I going to see, Liam?" "Your wife and Trevor. Together." The words came out in a rush. "In her office? Last Tuesday around 8 p.m. Trevor, the golden boy freshman with the perfect smile and daddy's money." Natalie had mentioned him before, brilliant student, natural talent for literature, needed extra help with his essays, always staying after class. I plugged the drive into my laptop. The video file was 23 minutes long. The timestamp showed last Tuesday, 8:17 p.m. I hit play. The quality was grainy, shot through what looked like a cracked door, but the audio was crystal clear. And what I saw made my blood turn to ice water. Natalie, my wife of 8 years, was bent over her desk. Trevor stood behind her, both of them breathing hard. Her blouse was on the floor. His hands gripped her hips. "God, you're incredible," Trevor panted. "Better than any girl my age." "Shut up and focus," Natalie gasped back. "We don't have long." The camera shook, Liam's hands trembling as he recorded. I watched my wife of 8 years behave like a woman I'd never met. The sounds, the words, the way she moved, it was all wrong, all alien. When it ended, I sat in perfect silence for 30 seconds. Then I calmly ejected the drive and handed it back to Liam. "Keep this," I said, "and don't tell anyone else, not yet." "I'm sorry, Jason. I didn't know what to do. She's been giving him perfect grades on everything, even when his work is garbage. I thought you should know." I nodded. "You did the right thing. Go home, get some sleep." After he left, I sat alone in the server room for 2 hours, not crying, not screaming, just thinking. The fluorescent lights hummed above me like a countdown timer. By morning, I had a plan. The next 3 days, I acted like nothing had changed. Natalie came home Tuesday evening with Chinese takeout and a smile, asking about my day. We ate dinner and watched Netflix. She fell asleep against my shoulder during some forgettable movie. I studied her face in the blue glow of the television. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of thinking I knew this woman. The way she laughed at my stupid jokes. The way she hummed while making coffee. All of it felt like a performance now. But I didn't confront her. That would be amateur hour. Instead, I did what I did best. Gathered information. Working in IT at Riverside College had its perks. I had administrative access to everything. Email servers, security cameras, student records, faculty files. Most people treated me like part of the furniture, the quiet tech guy who fixed their computers and disappeared. Thursday morning, while Natalie taught her 9 a.m. British literature class, I pulled Trevor's academic records. His grades told an interesting story. Freshman composition, C+. Introduction to philosophy, B. But in Natalie's classes, nothing below an A. His latest essay was titled Sexual Awakening in Victorian Literature. I opened the file and nearly laughed out loud. It was garbage. Rambling sentences, basic grammar errors, arguments that made no sense. A high school sophomore could have written better analysis. But Natalie had given it an A+ with the comment, exceptional insight into the psychological complexities of repressed desire. Your unique perspective brings fresh meaning to these classic texts. I saved everything to an encrypted external drive. Next, I accessed the security camera feeds. The college had cameras everywhere, hallways, parking lots, building entrances. I pulled up Tuesday night, focusing on the liberal arts building where Natalie's office was located. 8:03 p.m. Trevor enters the building through the side door. 8:05 p.m. Natalie's office light turns on. 8:47 p.m. Trevor exits the building looking disheveled. 8:52 p.m. Natalie exits, straightening her clothes. I burned copies of the footage to 3 separate drives. That evening, Natalie was particularly affectionate. She made my favorite dinner, pot roast with potatoes, and kept touching my arm while we talked. "How was your day, honey?" she asked, refilling my wine glass. "Same as always. Fixed Professor Brennan's laptop, updated the library databases. Nothing exciting." "You work so hard," she said, leaning over to kiss my cheek. "I appreciate everything you do." The kiss felt like a snake sliding across my skin, but I smiled and squeezed her hand. "How's your new student? Trevor something?" Her face didn't change, but I caught the brief pause before she answered. "Trevor Patterson, bright kid. Needs guidance, but he's got potential." "Must be nice having engaged students." "It is." She cleared the dishes, humming that same tune. Sometimes the younger ones are so eager to learn, so enthusiastic. I excused myself to the bathroom and threw up everything I'd eaten. Friday afternoon, I was installing new software on Chairman Collier's computer when I stumbled across something interesting. His email was still open and a familiar name caught my eye in his recent messages. From email protected to email protected. Subject, our arrangement. The email was from 3 weeks ago. I glanced toward Collier's office door. He was in a budget meeting for the next hour. I opened the message. "David, about last night. We need to be more careful. If Jason suspects anything, it could complicate things for both of us. The Patterson situation is already risky enough. We can't afford another scandal like the Anderson incident from last year. Delete this after reading. N." My hands went numb. Chairman Collier, the silver-haired puppet master who ran the college like his personal kingdom. Natalie was sleeping with him too. I memorized every word, then deleted the email from his trash folder. But I'd already forwarded a copy to myself from his account. That evening, I suggested Natalie and I go out for drinks. She seemed distracted, checking her phone every few minutes. "Everything okay?" I asked as we sat in our usual booth at Murphy's Tavern. "Just student issues, you know how it is." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Trevor's been having some problems with his roommate. Kid stuff." "Sounds stressful. Nothing I can't handle." She reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm just glad I have you. You're so steady, Jason. So reliable." The word reliable hit me like a slap. Reliable. That's what I was to her. The steady paycheck, the predictable husband who fixed computers and asked no questions. The safe choice who'd never figure out what she was really doing. I squeezed her hand and smiled. "I love you too." But inside, something cold and patient was growing. Something that would wait as long as necessary to make her pay for every lie. Over the weekend, I transformed our spare bedroom into a surveillance center. While Natalie attended a faculty workshop that conveniently wasn't listed on the college calendar, I installed hidden cameras in her car, cloned her phone, and gained remote access to her office computer. The technology was straightforward. You could buy most of it online with next-day shipping. The hard part was staying calm when she came home Sunday evening, chattering about her day while I nodded and made appropriate responses. "The workshop was so informative," she said, unpacking Thai food in the kitchen. "Professor Martinez presented some fascinating research on modern interpretations of classical texts." I checked Professor Martinez's schedule. He was in Denver at a conference all weekend. Monday morning, I started my real work. While ostensibly running routine maintenance on the college servers, I dug deeper into the digital paper trail. Email backups, deleted files, security logs, everything left traces if you knew where to look. The pattern emerged quickly. Natalie had been abusing her position for at least 2 years, not just with Trevor and Collier, but with at least 3 other students. She traded grades for favors, using her authority to manipulate vulnerable young men who needed to pass her classes. The Anderson incident Collier had mentioned in his email, David Anderson, a sophomore from last year who'd failed out after 1 semester. But his transcripts showed he'd initially received an A+ in Natalie's Victorian literature course, then had his grade mysteriously changed to an F after the semester ended. I found Anderson's contact information in the alumni database. He was working at a car dealership in Phoenix now, according to his LinkedIn profile. I called him during my lunch break. "David, this is Jason Walsh from Riverside College IT. I'm reviewing some irregularities in the grading system from last year and noticed some unusual changes to your transcript. Do you have a few minutes to discuss this?" There was a long pause. "What kind of irregularities?" Your grade in Professor Walsh's Victorian literature class was changed from an A+ to an F after the semester ended. That's highly unusual. I'm trying to understand what happened. Another pause. When Anderson spoke again, his voice was tight with old anger. Your wife is a hunter, Mr. Walsh. She made promises she didn't keep. When I tried to end things with her, she destroyed my transcript out of spite. Cost me my scholarship. I'm not sure I understand what you mean by end things. I think you do. His voice was bitter. She targets guys who are struggling financially, makes them feel special. Then when they don't want to play her games anymore, she ruins them. After the call, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the dashboard. The scope of Natalie's corruption was bigger than I'd imagined. This wasn't just an affair. It was a systematic pattern of misuse. That evening, I tested her. Honey, do you remember David Anderson, student from last year? She was chopping vegetables for dinner, but I saw her knife hand pause for just a fraction of a second. David Anderson. The name sounds familiar. Why? His mother called the IT help desk today. Something about his transcript being wrong. Wanted me to look into it. Oh, she resumed, chopping, her movements slightly more aggressive. I remember him now. Bright enough, but didn't apply himself. Stopped attending class, missed assignments. I had to fail him. His mother seemed to think he'd been doing well in your class. Parents never want to believe their children aren't perfect. She dumped the vegetables into the pan with unnecessary force. David had potential, but he made poor choices. I can't give passing grades to students who don't earn them. Every word was a lie, delivered with perfect conviction. I wondered how many other lies I'd swallowed over the years, mistaking her practiced deception for honesty. Tuesday morning brought a new development. I was monitoring the security feeds when I noticed Trevor entering the liberal arts building at 7:30 a.m., 30 minutes before Natalie's first class. He used a key to let himself in. Students weren't supposed to have building keys. I checked the key assignment records. Trevor Patterson had been issued a research assistant key 3 weeks ago, authorized by Professor N. Walsh for independent study projects requiring after-hours library access, except Trevor wasn't enrolled in any independent study courses. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. Liam appeared in my cubicle, looking even more nervous than before. Jason, we need to talk, privately. I led him to a storage closet in the basement. The space was cramped and smelled like cleaning supplies, but it was the only place on campus I was certain wasn't monitored. Someone knows I gave you that video, Liam whispered. Yesterday, I found a note in my backpack. It said, "Keep your mouth shut or you'll regret it." Did you recognize the handwriting? No, but... He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. This was under my dorm room door this morning. The image showed Liam's class schedule with red X's marked through every course. At the bottom, someone had written, "Accidents happen to nosy students." Have you told anyone else about the video? No, I swear, Jason, just you. Then how did they know? Liam's face went pale. I don't know. Maybe they saw me give you the flash drive, the security cameras. I'd already checked the security footage from that night. The server room camera had conveniently malfunctioned between 11:47 p.m. and 12:15 a.m., exactly when Liam had visited me. Listen carefully, I said. Don't change your routine. Go to classes, eat in the dining hall, act normal, but stay in public places as much as possible. Don't walk alone at night. What are you going to do? I'm going to end this, but I need you to stay safe while I work. After Liam left, I sat in the storage closet thinking. Someone was protecting Natalie. Someone with enough influence to access security systems and intimidate students. Collier was the obvious suspect, but he wasn't the only possibility. I needed to identify all the players before making my next move. That night, I told Natalie I had to work late on a server upgrade. Instead, I positioned myself in the liberal arts building parking lot with a telephoto lens, watching her office window. At 8:15 p.m., I saw shadows moving behind the blinds. 2 figures, one much taller than the other. 23 minutes later, Trevor emerged from the building, adjusting his clothes. But this time, I was ready. I'd installed a keylogger on Natalie's office computer the day before. Every keystroke, every password, every email would be recorded. The next morning, while reviewing the captured data, I found something that made my blood run cold. An email exchange between Natalie and someone using the address, email protected. The Liam situation is handled. He won't cause any more problems, but we need to accelerate the timeline. Walsh is asking questions. Understood. Can you arrange for Jason to be transferred to the night shift permanently? The fewer people around during our sessions, the better. Already in motion. Effective next week, he'll be working midnight to 8 a.m. That gives us complete privacy. They weren't just covering their tracks, they were isolating me, moving me out of the way like an inconvenient piece of furniture. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. They thought they were so clever, so untouchable. They had no idea they were dealing with someone who understood their systems better than they did. It was time to show them what a real hunter looked like. Wednesday evening, I implemented phase 1 of my plan. While Natalie graded papers in her home office, I sat in the living room with my laptop, pretending to watch a documentary about sharks. "Honey, do you remember your student ID password?" I called out. "Why?" she replied from the other room. "It is doing a security audit. I need to verify that faculty aren't using weak passwords." "It's Victorian Poet 47. All one word, capital V and P. Predictable. I'd already cracked it 2 days ago using a script that tested variations of her research interests and birth year. But now, I had confirmation that she'd given it to me willingly. Useful if anyone ever questioned how I'd accessed her accounts. Thanks, very secure. With her password confirmed, I began the systematic destruction of Natalie's digital life. But not all at once. That would be too obvious. Instead, I started with subtle manipulations that would gradually undermine her credibility. First, I modified her automatic email signature to include a line she'd never notice, sent from my iPad while thinking of my special students. Innocent enough on its own, but suggestive when combined with other evidence. Then I scheduled delayed emails to be sent from her account to various male students with subject lines like private tutoring session and let's discuss your needs. The messages themselves were benign, requests for office hour appointments, but the timing and phrasing would raise eyebrows. The beauty of administrative access was that I could make these changes invisible to her. She'd see her normal interface while everyone else saw the modified versions. Thursday morning brought unexpected chaos. I was updating the library databases when Professor Brennan stormed into my cubicle. "Jason, there's something wrong with Natalie's email account. She's been sending inappropriate messages to students." I looked appropriately concerned. "What kind of messages?" "Suggestive subject lines, requests for private meetings. Dean Morrison wants to see the server logs immediately." "I'll pull them right away," I said, already knowing what they'd show. Within an hour, Dean Morrison had called Natalie into a disciplinary meeting. I watched through the security cameras as she sat in the conference room, looking genuinely confused while Morrison showed her printouts of the emails. "I never sent these," she insisted. "Someone must have hacked my account." "The server logs show they originated from your office computer using your password," Morrison replied. "At times when the security system shows you were in the building." "That's impossible. I would never—" "Professor Walsh, I'm not accusing you of intentionally sending inappropriate messages, but there's clearly a security issue with your account. Until we resolve this, I'm suspending your email access and requiring you to conduct all student communications through the department secretary." Natalie left the meeting looking shaken. That evening, she came home early and poured herself a large glass of wine. "Bad day?" I asked, setting down my book. "Someone's been messing with my email, sending weird messages to students. It thinks my account was compromised." "That's terrible. Do they know who did it?" "No." She took a large gulp of wine. "But it's humiliating. Half the faculty probably thinks I'm some kind of hunter now." I wrapped my arms around her from behind, feeling her tense shoulders. "I'm sure it'll blow over. Everyone knows you're professional." If only she knew how right she was about being seen as a hunter. Friday brought phase 2. I'd discovered that Trevor's roommate, Ben, was a frequent visitor to various gambling websites, specifically online poker games that were technically illegal in our state. A quick modification to the dormitory's web filtering system ensured that all of Ben's traffic was logged and flagged. Then I placed an anonymous call to campus security. "I'd like to report suspicious activity in dormitory C," I said, disguising my voice. "Room 247. Possible illegal gambling operation." By afternoon, campus security had searched Trevor and Ben's room, finding evidence of online gambling on Ben's laptop. Ben was immediately suspended pending a disciplinary hearing. This left Trevor without a roommate, isolated and paranoid. More importantly, it sent a clear message to anyone paying attention. People connected to the situation were having very bad luck. That evening, I monitored Trevor's phone calls from my home surveillance setup. The kid was panicking, calling Natalie repeatedly. Something's happening, I heard him say when she finally answered. First, Liam gets those threatening notes. Now Ben's suspended. Someone's targeting people around us. You're being paranoid, Natalie's voice came through clearly. I'd placed a bug in her office phone. These are coincidences. What if they're not? What if someone knows about us? Keep your voice down and stop calling me from your personal phone. Use the secure number I gave you. Secure number? I made a note to identify that line. Saturday morning, while Natalie attended what she claimed was a department planning retreat, I received an interesting visitor. Chairman Collier appeared at my front door, looking nervous. Jason, do you have a few minutes? I'd like to discuss some IT security concerns. I invited him in, offering coffee while my hidden cameras recorded everything. There have been some unusual activities on the college network, he said, settling into my living room chair. Email irregularities, security breaches. I'm wondering if you've noticed anything suspicious. Not particularly, though I did help Dean Morrison pull some logs yesterday for Professor Walsh's email investigation. Collier's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Yes, that situation. Very unfortunate. Natalie's always been such a professional educator. Absolutely. I can't imagine her sending inappropriate messages to students. Of course not. He leaned forward slightly. Jason, I want you to know that if you ever need anything, career advancement, better equipment for your department, anything at all, my door is always open. The college values dedicated employees like yourself. The offer hung in the air like a bribe. He was testing me, trying to determine how much I knew and whether I could be bought. That's very generous, Chairman Collier. I appreciate the college's support. Excellent. He stood to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and Jason? If you happen to discover any security vulnerabilities in our systems, I hope you'll bring them directly to me. We wouldn't want sensitive information falling into the wrong hands. After he left, I sat in my kitchen laughing until tears ran down my face. They were so frightened they were sending the college chairman to my house to feel me out, and they still had no idea what was coming. That afternoon, I put Phase 3 into motion. Using Collier's administrative access, which I'd compromised weeks ago, I began creating a digital trail that would eventually destroy both him and Natalie. I scheduled anonymous reports to be filed with the State Education Board, detailing patterns of grade manipulation and inappropriate faculty-student relationships at Riverside College. The reports would be submitted from different IP addresses over the course of several weeks, making them appear to come from multiple concerned sources. Then I crafted careful modifications to the college's internal investigation protocols, ensuring that any inquiry into faculty misconduct would automatically escalate to external oversight agencies. Sunday evening, Natalie received a call that changed everything. Yes, this is Professor Walsh, she answered, putting the call on speaker while she cooked dinner. Professor, this is Detective Sarah Chen with the State Education Investigation Unit. We've received reports of potential academic misconduct at Riverside College. I'd like to schedule an interview with you this week. The wooden spoon in Natalie's hand clattered to the floor. What kind of reports? I'd prefer to discuss the details in person. Are you available Tuesday at 10 a.m.? Yes. Should I bring a lawyer? That's your choice, Professor. We're simply gathering information at this stage. After the call ended, Natalie stood frozen in the kitchen for a full minute. When she finally turned around, her face was white as paper. Jason? Something's happening at the college. Someone's filed complaints about academic misconduct. I looked up from my book with appropriate concern. What kind of complaints? I don't know. The detective wouldn't say. She began pacing around the kitchen. This has to be connected to the email thing. Someone's trying to destroy my career. Who would do that? I have no idea. She was close to tears now. I've always been fair with my students. I've never done anything inappropriate. I stood up and pulled her into a hug, feeling her shake against my chest. We'll figure this out. Whatever's happening, we'll handle it together. She clung to me like a drowning woman, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered David Anderson's bitter voice on the phone. I thought about Liam's frightened face and the threatening notes. I pictured Trevor using his key to enter the building for his private sessions. My wife wasn't a sufferer. She was a hunter who'd gotten careless, and now her world was finally crumbling around her. The only question was how much more damage I could do before she figured out who was really pulling the strings. Tuesday morning, I watched from the security camera feeds as Natalie entered the state education office building downtown. She wore her most professional outfit, navy blue suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back in a severe bun, the look of a woman trying to project competence while her world collapsed. Detective Chen was thorough. The interview lasted 3 hours. While Natalie was being questioned, I made my next move. Using Trevor's student access credentials, which I'd harvested from a keylogger on the library computers, I logged into his account and began crafting a digital confession. The document detailed his relationship with Natalie, including specific dates, locations, and conversations. I wrote it in Trevor's voice, making it sound like a guilty student who could no longer live with the secret. Then I saved it to his personal cloud storage, backdated to 3 weeks ago. I also planted evidence on his laptop, photos of Natalie taken with a telephoto lens, email drafts professing his love for her, and a detailed spreadsheet tracking her schedule. It painted the picture of an obsessed student who'd initiated the relationship. By the time Natalie returned from her interview, I had created enough evidence to bury Trevor if I needed a scapegoat. "How did it go?" I asked when she walked through our front door. "Terrible." She collapsed onto the couch, still wearing her suit. "They know everything, Jason. About my grading practices, about students getting special treatment. Someone's been feeding them information." "What kind of information?" "Detailed records, email logs, grade changes, things only someone with administrative access could have found." She looked directly at me when she said this, and for a moment I thought she had figured it out, but then her expression shifted to desperate confusion. "Who would do this to me? I've never hurt anyone." The sheer audacity of her self-pity was breathtaking. Even now, facing the consequences of her actions, she still saw herself as the sufferer. "Did they mention any specific students?" I asked. "A few names. David Anderson was the main one. Apparently, he filed a formal complaint last month detailing—" She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "Detailing what?" "He claims I coerced him into a sexual relationship in exchange for grades, which is completely false. I would never—" Another lie, delivered with practiced conviction. But I could see the cracks in her facade now. The careful composure was slipping. That evening, Trevor called Natalie's personal phone. I listened to their conversation from my home surveillance setup. "Professor Walsh, we need to talk. The police came to my dorm today." "Not over the phone," Natalie snapped. "And stop calling me professor. Use my first name." "Natalie, I'm scared. They asked about our relationship, about my grades, about the key you gave me." "What did you tell them?" "Nothing. But they had photos, Natalie. Pictures of me entering the liberal arts building at night. Someone's been watching us." There was a long pause before Natalie responded. "Meet me tomorrow at the usual place. We need to discuss our options." "What options?" "I think I should tell them the truth." "The truth?" Natalie's voice turned cold. "The truth is that you're an adult who made choices. The truth is that if you try to destroy my career, I'll make sure you never attend another college in this country. Think very carefully about your next move, Trevor." After the call ended, I sat in my office staring at the recording equipment. Natalie wasn't just a hunter, she was a calculating manipulator who'd turned threatening students into an art form. Wednesday brought chaos to the campus. Word had leaked about the state investigation, and local media started sniffing around. I watched from my cubicle as reporters attempted to interview students and faculty, most of whom hurried past with no comment. At lunch, I walked past Natalie's office and saw her through the window, packing boxes. Her hands were shaking as she wrapped picture frames in newspaper. Dean Morrison appeared in my cubicle that afternoon, looking grim. "Jason, I need to ask you some uncomfortable questions about your wife. Of course, whatever you need. The investigation has uncovered some serious irregularities in Professor Walsh's grading patterns. As her husband and someone with access to college systems, I need to verify that you haven't assisted with any unauthorized activities." I looked appropriately shocked. "What kind of activities?" "Grade modifications, email manipulations, student record changes. Any of these ring a bell?" "Absolutely not. I would never compromise the integrity of college systems. That would be a violation of everything I believe in professionally." Morrison studied my face. "The state investigators want to interview you as well. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'll cooperate fully." That evening, Natalie was waiting for me when I got home. She'd been drinking. There was an empty wine bottle on the kitchen counter and another one open beside her. "They're destroying me, Jason. 20 years of teaching, and they're treating me like a criminal." "What did Dean Morrison say?" "I'm suspended pending the investigation. They've locked me out of my office, frozen my email access, everything. She took a large gulp of wine. And the worst part is, some of the accusations are being made by students I've tried to help. Students like Trevor? She looked up sharply. How do you know about Trevor? Morrison mentioned him, said he was a key witness in the investigation. Trevor's just a confused kid. He misunderstood the nature of our mentoring relationship. Even drunk, she couldn't tell the truth. Every word out of her mouth was calculated misdirection. Natalie, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. What? Did you ever have inappropriate relationships with your students? She set down her wine glass and looked me straight in the eye. No, Jason, I've always maintained professional boundaries. The allegations are false. What about David Anderson? David was troubled. He developed an unhealthy fixation on me and became angry when I didn't reciprocate his feelings. Now he's trying to ruin my career out of spite. And Trevor? The same thing. These young men sometimes misinterpret mentorship as something romantic. When I have to maintain boundaries, they feel rejected and strike back. It was a masterful performance. Every lie delivered with wounded dignity and righteous indignation. If I hadn't seen the video, hadn't read the emails, hadn't heard the phone calls, I might have believed her. Instead, I nodded sympathetically and poured myself a glass of wine. I believe you, I said, and I'll support you through this. She smiled for the first time in days. Thank you. I knew I could count on you. That night, after Natalie passed out drunk on the couch, I sat in my office preparing for the next phase. The state investigation would take weeks to complete, but I couldn't wait that long. The pressure was making people desperate, and desperate people made mistakes. It was time to accelerate the timeline and force a confrontation. I opened my laptop and began typing a message that would change everything. Thursday morning's interview with Detective Chen was a performance. I played the concerned husband perfectly, shocked by the allegations, supportive of my wife, but committed to cooperating with the investigation. Mr. Walsh, you have administrative access to all college computer systems. Have you ever noticed any unusual activity in your wife's accounts? Not until this week when Dean Morrison asked me to pull the email logs. That's when I saw those strange messages with inappropriate subject lines. You didn't notice anything before then. I make it a policy never to monitor my wife's professional activities. That would be a violation of trust and college privacy policies. Chen nodded, making notes. What about her behavior at home? Any changes recently? She's been stressed about work, but I assumed it was normal academic pressure. Natalie's always been dedicated to her students. Several students have described receiving special treatment in her classes, better grades, private tutoring sessions, extended deadlines. Are you aware of these accommodations? Natalie believes in helping struggling students. If she bent the rules occasionally to give someone a second chance, I'd see that as compassion, not misconduct. After the interview, I drove straight to the college. It was time for the final phase of my plan. I'd spent the previous night crafting the perfect email, one that would force all the players into a single room for a confrontation they'd never forget. The message went out from an anonymous account to Natalie, Trevor, Chairman Collier, and 3 other faculty members I'd identified as being complicit in the cover-up. The subject line read, "Meeting tonight, final resolution." The message was simple. If you want to prevent the complete destruction of your careers, meet in the Liberal Arts Building tonight at 9 p.m., room 237. Come alone and bring any evidence you've been hiding. This is your only chance to control the narrative before everything goes public. I sent the email at 2 p.m., giving them enough time to panic, but not enough to organize a coordinated response. Then I began my final preparations. Room 237 was a small conference room on the 2nd floor of the Liberal Arts Building. I'd selected it because it had only one entrance and excellent acoustics for recording. I spent the afternoon installing hidden cameras and microphones throughout the room, as well as a live feed that would stream everything to my laptop. By 6 p.m., I was positioned in the building's security office, watching multiple camera feeds on my laptop. The Liberal Arts Building was nearly empty, just a few graduate students in the computer lab and a janitor making his rounds. At 8:45 p.m., they started arriving. Natalie came first, looking haggard. She'd changed from her interview clothes into jeans and a sweater, but her face was drawn with exhaustion and fear. She clutched a manila envelope against her chest as she climbed the stairs to the 2nd floor. Trevor appeared 5 minutes later, entering through the side door he still had key access to. The kid looked like he hadn't slept in days. Dark circles under his eyes, stubble on his usually clean-shaven face. He carried a backpack that seemed heavier than it should be. Chairman Collier arrived at exactly 9 p.m., dressed in his usual expensive suit despite the late hour. Even in crisis, the man maintained his image. He walked with false confidence, but I could see the tension in his shoulders through the camera feed. Professor Martinez came next, the woman who'd allegedly been at the weekend workshop that Natalie had lied about attending. She looked around nervously before entering the building, clearly uncomfortable with whatever role she'd played in this mess. 2 more faculty members arrived within minutes of each other, Dr. Foster from the psychology department and Professor Kim from student affairs. I'd identified them through email trails showing they'd helped cover up previous incidents. At 9:15 p.m., they were all gathered in room 237. I switched my laptop to the hidden camera feed and activated the recording software. The audio came through crystal clear. "Who called this meeting?" Collier demanded, standing at the head of the conference table. "And where the hell is whoever sent that email?" "Maybe it's a trap," Trevor said, his voice shaking. "Maybe someone's recording us right now." "Don't be paranoid," Martinez snapped. "We're here because we need to coordinate our stories. The state investigation is accelerating, and if we don't present a unified front, we're all going down." Natalie finally spoke up. "I still don't understand how this happened. Someone with inside access has been feeding information to the investigators. Someone who knows our systems." "You think it's Jason?" Foster asked. The mention of my name made my pulse spike. Through the camera, I watched Natalie's face contort with confusion and doubt. "No," she said slowly. "Jason's not smart enough to orchestrate something like this. He's IT support, not a criminal mastermind. Not smart enough." Even now, facing destruction, she couldn't resist the casual dismissal. The steady, reliable husband who fixed computers and asked no questions. "Then who?" Collier demanded. "This isn't random. Someone's been systematically gathering evidence for months." Trevor cleared his throat. "What if it's David Anderson? He's got motive, and he worked in the computer lab before he transferred." "Anderson doesn't have administrative access," Kim pointed out. "Whoever's doing this can modify grades, access security cameras, manipulate email systems. This is someone with high-level privileges." They spent the next 20 minutes pointing fingers at each other, their paranoia and fear escalating with each accusation. I recorded every word, every admission of guilt, every detail of their conspiracy. Finally, Collier slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. We need to focus on damage control. What evidence do they actually have?" Natalie opened her manila envelope and spread documents across the table. "The state investigators showed me some of their files today. They have grade modification records, email logs, security footage. Someone's been documenting everything." "They have the video," Trevor said quietly. Everyone turned to stare at him. "What video?" Martinez asked. "The one of me and of us in Natalie's office. That's how this all started. Some student recorded us through the door." Natalie's face went white. "You never told me about a video. I thought you knew. I thought that's why you were being so careful lately." "Who has this video?" Collier's voice was deadly calm. "I don't know, but the investigators referenced it during their interview. They described details that could only have come from watching it." The room erupted in angry voices as the full scope of their exposure became clear. Through my camera feed, I watched their alliance crumble in real time. "This is your fault," Martinez pointed at Natalie. "Your reckless behavior with students has destroyed all of us." "My behavior?" Natalie shot back. "You've been covering up incidents for years. Don't pretend you're innocent." "At least I didn't sleep with teenagers." "Trevor's 18. He's a legal adult." "Who you manipulated and exploited." Collier tried to restore order, but the room had descended into chaos. Dr. Foster was crying. Professor Kim was threatening to cooperate with investigators to save her own career. Trevor sat in stunned silence as the adults around him dissolved into recriminations. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, the complete destruction of their conspiracy, captured in high definition for posterity. But I wasn't done yet. At 10:30 p.m., I sent another anonymous message to all their phones simultaneously. "Having a productive meeting? Check your email." Through the camera, I watched them pull out their phones in unison. The email I'd just sent contained a single attachment, a compilation video showing highlights from their conversation over the past hour and 20 minutes. The recording quality was perfect. Every face was clearly visible. Every incriminating statement was crystal clear. The message accompanying the video read, This footage is being uploaded to multiple news outlets as you read this. You have approximately 30 minutes before it goes public. Use your time wisely." The panic was immediate and absolute. Natalie screamed. Trevor bolted for the door, but Collier grabbed his arm. Martinez started hyperventilating. The careful masks they'd worn for so long were finally stripped away, revealing the desperate hunters underneath. "We need to find whoever's doing this," Collier said, his voice barely controlled. "Right now." "How?" Foster sobbed. "They could be anywhere. They could be watching us right now." "The IT department," Kim said suddenly. "It has to be someone from IT. They're the only ones with this level of access." "Jason Walsh," Martinez whispered. All eyes turned to Natalie, whose face had gone gray. "No, that's impossible. Jason doesn't... He couldn't..." "Your husband has administrative access to every system on campus," Collier said slowly. "He could have done all of this." "But why? He doesn't know about any of this. I've been careful." "Have you?" Trevor interrupted. "Have you really been that careful? Because someone's been documenting our relationship for months. Someone who knew exactly when and where to look." I watched through the camera as understanding finally dawned on Natalie's face. 8 years of marriage, and she was finally seeing her husband clearly for the first time. "Oh God," she whispered. "Oh God, what have I done?" The meeting dissolved into chaos as they argued about what to do next. Some wanted to confront me directly. Others wanted to run. A few talked about trying to destroy evidence, not realizing it was far too late for that. At 11:15 p.m., I sent one final message to Natalie's phone. "Come home. We need to talk." She looked at the screen, then at the faces around her, colleagues who'd already started distancing themselves, a student lover who now looked at her with disgust, a chairman who was calculating how to save his own career at her expense. "I have to go," she said quietly. "Natalie, wait," Collier started. "No." She stood up, gathering her papers with shaking hands. "This is over, all of it." She walked out of the room without looking back, leaving the others to their desperate plotting. I packed up my equipment and headed home to wait for my wife. I was sitting in our living room when Natalie's car pulled into the driveway. The house was dark, except for a single lamp beside my chair. I'd positioned myself so that when she entered, I'd be silhouetted against the light, an effect I'd learned from watching too many thriller movies. The front door opened slowly. Natalie stepped inside, moving like someone walking to her execution. "Jason?" Her voice was small, uncertain. "In here." She appeared in the doorway, still clutching the manila envelope from the meeting. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled. 8 years of marriage, and I'd never seen her look so broken. "We need to talk," she said. "Yes, we do." I gestured to the couch across from me. "Please, sit down." She remained standing. "How long have you known?" "About Trevor, 3 weeks. About Collier, 2 weeks. About the pattern of sexual misuse spanning multiple years." I checked my watch. "About 6 hours." The words hit her like physical blows. She staggered backward, catching herself against the doorframe. "The meeting," she whispered. "You were listening." "Watching too. High-definition video, excellent audio quality. I've always prided myself on my technical skills." "Why?" The word came out as a sob. "Why didn't you just confront me? Why destroy everything?" I laughed, and the sound was harsh in the quiet room. "Confront you? So you could lie to my face again? Tell me it was all a misunderstanding? That Trevor misinterpreted your mentoring relationship? Jason, please. Sit down, Natalie." This time, she obeyed. She perched on the edge of the couch, like a bird ready to flee, clutching her envelope. "I've spent 3 weeks learning about the woman I married," I continued. "The systematic manipulation of vulnerable students, the grade prostitution, the threats against anyone who tried to expose you. David Anderson lost his scholarship because he tried to end your relationship. Liam received end threats for giving me evidence. How many others were there, Natalie? How many young men did you destroy?" "It wasn't like that." "Stop!" The word cracked like a whip. "No more lies. I have video evidence, I have email records, I have recorded phone conversations. I know about the secure phone number you gave Trevor, I know about the key you issued him, I know about every sordid detail of your double life." She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "I never meant for it to go this far. It started innocently with David just helping a struggling student. But then you realized you could use your authority to manipulate young men into sleeping with you. No, they wanted it too. They pursued me. They were teenagers, Natalie. 18, 19 years old. Kids who needed grades to keep their scholarships, to stay in school, to build their futures. And you preyed on that desperation. You don't understand the pressure I was under. The publish or perish culture, the constant evaluation, the way male faculty members dismissed me. So you decided to become exactly what they accused women faculty of being, a hunter who sleeps her way to influence? The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Natalie's face crumpled completely. What do you want from me? She whispered. What will it take for you to stop this? I leaned forward, studying her tear-stained face. I want you to understand what you've done, not just to your students, but to me. 8 years of marriage, and you turned me into a joke. The reliable husband who fixes computers and asks no questions. The safe choice who'd never figure out what you were really doing. I loved you. You used me. As cover, as financial security, as the perfect alibi for your double life. Every time you came home from screwing a teenager, you kissed me and told me about your day. Every lie was delivered with such perfect conviction that I believed you completely. Jason, please. Do you know what the worst part is? Even now, even with all the evidence, part of me still wanted to believe you. That's how thoroughly you programmed me to trust your deception. She was sobbing openly now, her whole body shaking. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me. And you hurt David Anderson and Trevor and God knows how many others over the years. And you would have kept doing it if you hadn't gotten careless. What happens now? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our quiet suburban street. Normal houses with normal families living normal lives, lives that weren't built on lies and manipulation. The state investigation will conclude that you systematically misused your position to exploit students sexually. The evidence is overwhelming. Video recordings, email logs, grade modification records, witness testimony. You'll be terminated, lose your teaching license, and probably face criminal charges. And you? I'll be the tragic husband who discovered his wife's crimes and cooperated fully with authorities. The reliable IT guy who helped expose corruption despite personal cost. You planned all of this. Every detail. From the moment Liam showed me that video, I knew this was the only way it could end. You're a hunter, Natalie, and hunters need to be stopped. She stood up suddenly, fury replacing despair. You're destroying my entire life over a mistake. Trevor meant nothing to me. None of them did. You're my husband. I was your cover story. That's not true. I love you, Jason. I've always loved you. You love the idea of me. The steady paycheck, the respectable marriage, the perfect alibi. But you never loved me enough to stop betraying everything we built together. It wasn't betrayal. You were sleeping with college students, Natalie, and not just one. Multiple young men over multiple years. You traded grades for Zex and threatened anyone who tried to expose you. What would you call that? She had no answer. The fight went out of her as quickly as it had appeared, leaving her deflated and hollow. Please, she whispered. There has to be another way. We can leave town, start over somewhere else. I'll never teach again. I'll do whatever you want. What I want is for you to face the consequences of your choices. And what about us? Our marriage? I turned away from the window to face her one last time. Our marriage died the moment you decided Trevor Patterson was more important than your wedding vows. Jason, it's over, Natalie. All of it. I walked past her toward the stairs, then paused. The state investigators will want to interview you again tomorrow. I suggest you hire a lawyer. Where are you going? To pack. I'll be staying at a hotel until the investigation concludes. You can't just leave me. I looked back at her. This woman I'd loved for 8 years, who'd systematically destroyed everything good between us through lies and manipulation. Watch me. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom and began throwing clothes into a suitcase. Below, I could hear Natalie sobbing, but the sound meant nothing to me now. It was over. All of it. Except for one final detail. The story broke 3 days later. Local news picked it up first, then state media, then national outlets hungry for another academic scandal. Riverside College professor accused of sexual exploitation of students dominated headlines for a week. I watched the coverage from my hotel room, feeling strangely detached from the chaos I'd orchestrated. The investigation moved quickly once the evidence I'd compiled was officially discovered during the formal inquiry. Trevor was expelled but avoided criminal charges in exchange for his cooperation. His testimony, combined with the video evidence and digital records, painted a devastating picture of systematic misuse. David Anderson flew in from Phoenix to give a sufferer impact statement that left the investigators visibly shaken. He described 2 years of manipulation and threats, and how losing his scholarship had derailed his entire educational trajectory. Chairman Collier resigned in disgrace when his complicity in the cover-up became clear. The recordings from the conference room meeting provided irrefutable proof that multiple faculty members had known about Natalie's activities and chosen to protect the institution's reputation over student welfare. Dr. Foster and Professor Kim were suspended pending their own investigations. Professor Martinez was terminated after admitting she'd provided false alibis for Natalie's absences. The college faced multiple lawsuits from sufferers and their families. Enrollment dropped by 30% for the following semester. Several major donors pulled their funding, but the most satisfying moment came when I received a call from Detective Chen. Mr. Walsh, I wanted to thank you personally for your cooperation in this investigation. Your technical expertise was crucial in uncovering the full scope of the misconduct. I just did what any responsible employee would do. Not everyone would have had the courage to expose their own spouse. That couldn't have been easy. The truth was more important than my personal comfort. The State Education Board wants to offer you a commendation for your role in exposing this corruption. You helped protect countless future students from exploitation. A commendation. Official recognition for destroying my wife's life. The irony was perfect. 2 weeks after the story broke, I got an unexpected visitor at my hotel. Liam appeared in the lobby, looking healthier than I'd seen him since this whole thing started. Mr. Walsh, could I talk to you for a minute? We sat in the hotel restaurant, and he stirred his coffee nervously before speaking. I wanted to thank you, and to apologize. For what? For being a coward. I knew what Professor Walsh was doing, but I was too scared to report it officially. If I'd been braver, maybe this wouldn't have gone on as long as it did. You did the right thing by showing me that video. Yeah, but I should have done more. When I got those threatening notes, I almost destroyed the evidence just to make it stop. You were protecting yourself. That's not cowardly, it's smart. He managed a small smile. I'm transferring to state next semester. Fresh start, you know. But I wanted you to know that what you did mattered. You stopped her from hurting anyone else. After he left, I sat alone in the restaurant thinking about the ripple effects of my actions. Liam would get his fresh start. David Anderson had gotten some measure of justice. Future students would be protected from Natalie's huntery behavior. But I felt empty, hollow. The satisfaction I'd expected from my revenge never materialized. I'd won, but victory tasted like ash. 3 months later, the criminal trial began. Natalie's lawyer tried to portray her as a woman driven to poor decisions by professional pressure and personal problems. The strategy might have worked if not for the overwhelming evidence I'd compiled. The video of her with Trevor was played in open court. The recordings of her threatening students were devastating. The pattern of grade manipulation spanning multiple years painted her as a calculating hunter, not a troubled woman who'd made mistakes. I testified for the prosecution, keeping my answers clinical and factual. When Natalie's lawyer tried to suggest I'd been motivated by personal vindictiveness rather than justice, I simply stated the facts. I discovered evidence of criminal behavior and reported it to authorities as required by law. Natalie was convicted on 8 counts of sexual misconduct and misuse of authority. She received a 3-year prison sentence and was permanently barred from working in education. I watched from the gallery as they led her away in handcuffs. She looked back once, our eyes meeting across the courtroom. I felt nothing. That evening, I drove to Riverside College for the first time since the investigation began. The campus was quiet. Summer session, only a few students around. I parked in front of the liberal arts building and sat in my car, looking up at the windows where this all started. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. I hope you're satisfied. You destroyed everything. Probably one of Natalie's former allies, someone who'd lost their career in the aftermath. I deleted the message without responding. Another text arrived minutes later. She was found this morning. Note said she was saying goodbye to life. Hope it was worth it. My hands went numb. The phone slipped from my fingers and clattered to the car floor. Natalie was dead. I sat in the parking lot for an hour, staring at the building where I'd first learned who my wife really was. I'd wanted her to face consequences, to lose everything she'd built through lies and manipulation. I'd wanted her to understand what it felt like to be powerless, to have someone else control her fate. I'd gotten exactly what I wanted. So why did I feel like I was drowning? The funeral was small. Natalie's parents, a few distant relatives, two colleagues who hadn't been implicated in the scandal. I sat in the back of the chapel, watching her mother sob over a closed casket. No one spoke to me. I was the husband who'd exposed her crimes, the man who'd chosen justice over loyalty. They blamed me for her end, and they weren't wrong. After the service, Natalie's father approached me in the parking lot. Harold was a retired carpenter, a decent man who'd raised what he thought was a decent daughter. "This is your fault," he said quietly. "She made mistakes, but you destroyed her completely." "She destroyed herself. You could have handled this privately, gotten her help. Instead, you turned it into a public spectacle. Your daughter sexually exploited students for years. She threatened them when they tried to expose her. How exactly should I have handled that privately?" Harold's face crumpled. "She wasn't always like this. When she was young, she was kind, gentle. Something went wrong along the way." Something went wrong wasn't an excuse for Huntery behavior, but I didn't argue. The old man had lost his daughter. Let him keep his illusions. "I'm sorry for your loss," I said instead. "No, you're not. If you were sorry, she'd still be alive." He walked away, leaving me alone in the parking lot with my guilt and my hollow victory. That evening, I received a call from Detective Chen. "Mr. Walsh, I wanted to give you an update on Mrs. Walsh's passing. The investigation is closed. She left a detailed note taking full responsibility for her actions and expressing remorse for the damage she'd caused." "I see." "There was one thing she wanted me to tell you specifically. She said to tell you that you were right about everything, and that she was sorry for making you into someone you never wanted to be." The line went quiet for a moment. "Mr. Walsh, are you there?" "Yes." "Thank you for letting me know. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. Justice isn't always clean, but it's still justice." After the call, I poured myself a drink and sat on my hotel balcony, looking out at a city that felt foreign, despite being my home for 8 years. Natalie was gone. The investigation was over. Her sufferers had gotten their justice. And I was completely alone. 2 weeks later, I received an offer from the State Education Board to head up a new task force on academic misconduct prevention. They wanted to use my experience to help other institutions identify and prevent similar misuses. I accepted the position. It seemed fitting, spending my career hunting down hunters like the woman I'd married, using the skills I'd developed destroying Natalie to protect other students from exploitation. On my first day at the new job, I found a letter waiting on my desk. No return address, postmarked 3 days before Natalie died. Inside was a single sheet of paper in her handwriting. "Jason, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. You were right about everything. I became someone I never intended to be, and I turned you into someone you never wanted to be. We destroyed each other completely. I'm sorry for all of it. The students, the lies, the way I used you. But mostly I'm sorry for taking away the good man you were before you met me. Find a way to forgive yourself. One of us should get to live with peace. N." I read the letter 3 times, then put it in my desk drawer next to the flash drive Liam had given me all those months ago. Evidence of how this all began and how it ended. My assistant knocked on the office door. "Mr. Walsh, the Attorney General's office is here for your briefing on the Morrison University case." "Send them in." I locked the drawer and straightened my tie. Another day, another hunter to hunt down, another institution to clean up. Another chance to prevent what had happened to David Anderson and Trevor, and God knows how many others. It was good work, important work, but it would never bring back the man I'd been before I learned what my wife really was. That man had died in a server room at midnight, watching a video that changed everything. What was left was something harder, colder, more calculating, something that could systematically destroy another human being without remorse. Something that Natalie had created when she chose to betray everything we'd built together. I was good at the work. Very good. In the 3 years since taking the position, my task force had exposed misconduct at 17 different institutions. Hundreds of carnivory faculty members had been removed from positions of authority. Thousands of students had been protected from exploitation. The work gave me purpose, but it didn't give me peace. Every case felt personal. Every hunter I exposed was Natalie wearing a different face. Every sufferer I helped was someone I couldn't save in time. Late at night, in the hotel rooms and rental apartments that had become my permanent address, I sometimes wondered if there had been another way. If I could have confronted her directly, gotten her help, saved our marriage while still protecting her sufferers. But those thoughts never lasted long. I'd seen what she really was, not just in that first video, but in every calculated lie she told afterward, every threat she made, every student she manipulated. She hadn't been a good person who made bad choices. She'd been a hunter who got careless, and hunters, I'd learned, only understand one language: complete destruction. The work continued. The hunt continued. And somewhere in a quiet cemetery outside town, Natalie Walsh lay buried under a simple headstone that read, "Beloved daughter and teacher." No mention of wife. I'd made sure of that, because the woman I'd married had never really existed. She'd been a carefully constructed lie, designed to give a hunter the perfect cover for her crimes. And I'd spent 8 years of my life loving a fiction. The man who'd loved that fiction was gone now, replaced by something that understood the true nature of justice. Something that could identify hunters and destroy them without hesitation or remorse. Something that Natalie had created the moment she chose to betray everything we'd promised each other. I closed the case file on my desk and reached for the next one. Somewhere out there, another hunter was using their authority to exploit vulnerable students. Another institution was protecting reputations over sufferers. And I would find them. I would gather evidence. I would destroy them completely, because that's what I was now, what she had made me. The lecture was over. Class was in session.